Okay, well, I've got 10 o'clock, Miss McCarty, so you are on.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, welcome all of you to the Wednesday morning 10 o'clock Zoom meeting. And what we're going to be talking about is conflict resolution. I grew up in a household that I didn't learn how to have. I learned how to have a lot of conflict, but I didn't know how to reach a resolution. I believe my parents would have done better if they could have, but they were both very sick people. So I watched my mother and how she dealt with problems where she took drugs, prescription drugs, and she drank and laid on the couch. And then my father would rage and get violent. And so I watched, and there would be problems, but there would never be a solution. They would, finally my dad would go off and be gone 3 or 4 days or whatever. So I really never learned how to take a problem to a resolution stage until I got to a 12-step program. And I felt like when I found the 12 steps, it was like a parenting process for me, or reparenting. So I'm going to talk about how those of us who are in recovery and if you're not and you don't need to be, well, just thank God. But for those of us who do have any addiction, it is most important for us to stay out of conflict to the best of our ability, particularly early on in recovery. Because it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of time and focus to recover. And so the best thing for us to do is to not, get into a lot of conflict. And, we live in a world where there is conflict. And so it's important, I believe, that we know and talk about it. And I want to hear from each of you how you deal with conflict and how do you get to resolution. And so I'm just going to give you some things that I think has worked for me in that. And I will tell you, I had so much rage from my father. I carried his rage. And so before I found recovery, I just loved to find somebody that disagreed with me about anything. It didn't matter what it was, that I could argue with them till hell froze over, and it wasn't really about finding a resolution or a solution. It was about getting a charge, getting a high almost out of discharging that anger and that rage. I'm not proud of that. When my children were small, my world was pretty narrow because I was a stay-at-home mom. But when I'd go to the grocery store, I yearned for that checkout checker, and I mentioned this before. I really wanted her or him to make a mistake so I could throw a fit in rage. And I have walked off and left 2 full baskets because I would rage and then I'd get embarrassed and I'd leave. Got to where my kids wouldn't even go to the grocery store with me or didn't want to because I embarrassed them. So by the grace of God and a lot of good therapy and the 12 steps and wonderful sponsors and some hard work on my part, I'm no longer a rager. I don't and I can I can enter conflict to the best of my ability. I don't want to get into conflict. I don't look for it like I used to, so I can have the release. So I want to talk about how to get from the problem or from the conflict to resolution. One of the things to think about is that when 2 people are having conflict, to remember to keep the problem between the 2 people. It's not the person. It's not the people that are the problem. It's the problem. And so if 2 adults can come together with a problem that needs to be solved and not, blame the other person, or and so get your. And another thing, before you enter any kind of conflict resolution, it is best to get your feelings out of it first. And the way you do that is you talk to, if you're in a 12-step program, by all means, talk to your sponsor. If you're not, talk to someone that you trust and run it through the other person and let them help you see, maybe, another point of view. But get your feelings out of it to the best of your ability, and particularly those of us that have any kind of addiction, because it's the feelings, the unresolved feelings that we get uncomfortable with, and it will tell our brain, well, I know it can feel better. You can go take a drink, you can eat, you can do this. So it's important for addicts. We have to live a little different type of life than we did, or for me, that I did before, because those are the things that would take me back to the food in a heartbeat, in the bulimia. Because bulimia is about overeating and then purging. And when you purge that rage and that anger out. So the number one thing is get your feelings out of it first before you go to the other person. And like I said, talk to a sponsor or someone that you or that you trust, because it's not about going and gossiping about the other person. It's just about running it through someone first. And then the second thing is to listen to the other person, and listen not only for what the other person is saying, but listen with the feelings that in which they're saying it. If the other person has a lot of feelings into whatever that conflict is, listen to that, because you're going to learn a lot about that person through as much about the words that they say as the feelings. And so have a listening for each other. That is the best gift that we can give each other, is to have a listening. And so when you have a listening and you actually listen to the other person, and then, of course, I work in treatment. And so, we really encourage people to mirror back what you heard, because sometimes we don't even listen to the other person. We're just waiting for them to stop talking so we can talk. And so we don't even hear what they're saying. We may act like we're listening, but we're just figuring out what we're going to say, after they say what they say. And so it's about really having a listening for the other person, and really listen, with how they're delivering whatever they're saying. And then what that'll do is it will make the other person be more open to listening to you. And like I was going to say, it's this age thing. My memory kind of goes. Anyway, there's Jackie. We haven't seen Jackie for a while. Good to see you. I do have ADD, but anyway. Okay, so it's about when you are listening to someone, actually listen to them and mirror part of that back, so they'll know that you heard them. And how you do that is, what I hear you say, and say the high points of what you heard them say. And I really hear, and you might even say, if the person's crying, you might even say, I see your pain, or I see your anger, and validate that other person. That's going to but that's going to help that other person to have more of a listening for you. It's a lot about letting your armor down, your guard down, and making the resolution more of that's the number 3 thing. Make conflict resolution a priority. You have a conflict, but making a resolution, coming to a solution, a priority rather than being right. Driving down the street and someone pulls out in front of you. and you have a feeling that you just want to run into them, well, you can run into them and take a chance on, being in a wreck and maybe even dying in that car wreck. And so when you do, what we'll put on your tombstone is, I had the right of way. Having, always being right is not the best way to get to a resolution. And so be respectful of the other person's viewpoint. The older I get, the more I see how little I know. And what little I know, sometimes I can't even remember. So, that it's amazing when we can listen to people, hear their point of view. Sometimes, we have tunnel vision. It's just our way or the highway. We can have blinders on and can only see our way. But when we can listen to another person and watch their demeanor, watch how they're delivering their, whatever they're saying, if they have some pain with it or some anger, that's going to tell you a lot about that person. And like I said, and be respectful of their viewpoint, because you might learn something for them. You might get some information about the situation that you didn't even know. And a lot of times we can make our decisions about some sort of conflict without having gathered all of the facts. So that's another thing, is be respectful of the other person's viewpoint. And then number 4, and I see this all the time. I just came out of Family Week, been doing 2 days of Family Week. And, what this number 4 is focus on the present. Now, in Family Week, we do go back and we look at the past, but when you're in a conflict with another person and you're wanting to find a resolution, stay in the moment and what's going on and happening in that moment. And don't drag up all that unresolved stuff in the past. And because it will impair the decision for the moment. It'll impair everything. When you drag that stuff up in the past, there is what you're going to do is assign blame, and and the blame will always, not always, but what we want to do is put it on the other person. If they'll just listen to what they did to us years ago, blah blah blah, we feel justified in what we want from them today. So when you have a conflict with the person and you're going to them to try to find a resolution to it, stay in the moment, stay in what is the conflict this moment. And that takes practice, and that takes some maturity, and that takes, I believe, to invite God into what you're going to say before you walk into that arena with the other person. Invite God into it for yourself and for the other person, that you will have some discernment of what you need to say before you say it, and that focusing on the past. And we can do that, I think, more probably with if we've worked for someone for a long time, or if we have family members that we have conflict with, it's usually in long-term relationships where we know the people and they know us, but we have a conflict with them. And it's very easy to go back and drag up all that old stuff. Well, do you remember when? Do you remember? No. And that's not a way to ever get to a resolution about what the present problem is. And then another thing, and I'll speak, like I said earlier, addicts have to be very careful. This next thing is pick your battles. Pick your battles. Life is too short to fight over things that do not matter. I live in a little town of 463 people, and we're getting ready to have an election. Well, you would think it was a national presidential election. We've got a mayor that's running for re-election. He's 92, and we've got a woman running that's in her 80s. And Anyway, there can be conflict in a little bitty tiny town like this. And, those two people are both my friends, they're good friends. And so we really have to pick our battles. And what, there's a part of me that really, because I used to serve on the city council, and there's really a part of me that wants to really get in there and really argue and do this and say that. And you know what? I don't have the energy. And so this is about picking your battles because conflict can be draining. It can drain you. Now, if there is something that is so important to you that you're willing to have, to talk with someone about the conflict, you can get to a resolution, go for it. But know that it is going to take energy, time, and energy. And do you want to spend that? Is that matter that important to you? If it is, give it your all. If not, you might want to say, how important is this? One of the things that my husband used to say is 100 years from now, what difference will it make? 100 years from now, and then he would laugh about it. So it's about, and going back to being an addict, we must be very careful about the conflict that we enter into. If we're going to get out and, be a demonstrator and get on those streets and, and I'm all for that if that's what you want to do. I mean, or anyone, if you want to take a stand for something, or what I always say, if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything. But as recovering addicts, we have to be very clear about what we're standing for and be willing to suffer the consequences of the criticism. And if you can, accept the criticism about your behavior, you better stay out of that playing field, because it's that conflict and the stress and the energy that you put into conflict that will take you back to your substance every time. And and I'm not saying that addicts are weaklings. We're not weaklings, but we just have to err on the side of caution. And when in doubt, don't. We have to really do some soul searching. Is it this problem, whatever this problem is it that important for me to give that much time, energy, and attention to? So if it is, go into it and work with the other person about the problem till you get to a resolution, and be willing not to have it your way. If you go in, thinking that you're going to get your way about everything, you're going in to lose. So reaching a resolution is a give and take, So, if you want to waste your time and energy, find battles to get into. But, do you really want to? And choose your battles carefully. So another thing is to be willing to forgive the other person. At the end of the conflict, win, lose, or draw, whatever, do you reach a compromise? Do you get some, things that you want, and the other person gets some things that they want? That is what good resolution is. You both come out winners, but you've got to be willing to give up something in order to have that balance. You can't always have it your way. And so at the end of it, be willing to for forgiveness, forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of the other person. Now, if this is conflict that's been going on for years and years, and there is a lot of damage, emotional damage to you or whatever that's been done, and you'll have a lot of feelings about it. What I recommend is work that through with someone else before you go to the person that you've had conflict with or having conflict with. And so when you have when you're reaching a resolution, just remember to forgive yourself and also forgive that person. That person might have done more to you than you did to them. And, forgiveness is not about forgetting. You may not ever forget exactly what they did to you, but what you're saying, you're willing to give up the hurt. Even the word hurt, I want you to think about it. When you say, you hurt my feelings, that sounds pretty manipulative, But when you can stand with another person face to face, nose to nose, with the problem between you, and you don't see that other person as the problem and they don't see you as the problem, you can end that conflict with a mutual resolution and leave there with forgiveness in your heart for that other person. And like I said, with forgiveness in your heart for yourself. And that is how, forgetting, like I said, forgiving, like I said, is not always forgetting, but it's being willing to let go of the problem. Sometimes we will hold on, we'll chain ourselves to something while all the time we're asking the other person to let go of us. We'll chain ourselves to the problem while all the time we're asking the other person to let go. We get something out of conflict or we wouldn't stay in it. Now, if you want to live healthy and not have stress-related illnesses, what we must all learn to do is to have a conflict, but take it from the conflict stage to the resolution stage, and know that you can end up with two winners. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but you have to be willing to give up something, usually. And so another thing is using humor in conflict. Now, I'm not saying to laugh at the other person, but if there is usually the things that we get our feathers the most ruffled about when we get upset about something, a lot of times doesn't amount to a hill of beans. When something's happened to us many times in our mind's eye, we'll go back and gather up stuff that maybe our parents did to us. When you have, and I've said this before, when we have big feelings about something, like when you're having conflict with another person and you have great big feelings about what they've done to you, majority of the time, when you've got big feelings, what we say, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So you've got all the way back and picked up stuff in your childhood or all along your life where people have done you wrong, and you're bringing that into that present time of that conflict. So, the other person really doesn't have a chance, because they're not only trying to find a resolution with this moment, but all of your unresolved conflicts of the past. So going back to humor, if you can find something humorous about the situation, and that can create an opening for huge discussions. And like I said, it's not about laughing at the other person. It's about laughing at or finding something humor about how two grown adults have put so much power into this conflict that, it could be ruining relationships between husband and wife. It could be ruining a relationship between parent and child. You name the relationship. If there's a conflict there, if you don't find a resolution, it can harm those relationships. So what I'm saying, if you can get your adults on board enough to listen to the child in you, and be a little childlike and find something humorous about the moment. And when you do that, it will break the ice, and you can, for the other person, and it will bring down their defenses, and you can better talk about the problem between the two of you and find a resolution. So by no means are you laughing at the other person. You're just finding some common humor in the situation. All right. So one of the things in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, this comes out of a chapter out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's called the marriage chapter. And out of the new print of the big book, it used to be on page 449, but I want to read you this. A lot of you know it. A lot of you know it by heart. Some of you are new and you don't know it. But this is on page 417 in the new edition of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what this man was talking about, he was a physician and he was a bad alcoholic. And what, he got sober and his life was working for him in every area but with his wife. He could find more fault with her. She could not do anything right for him. And so he wrote this chapter about his alcoholism, but more than that, about his relationship with his wife and how he had to take off his glasses and start looking at his wife through a different pair of eyes and see what attracted him and what drew him to her when they first met, when they were teenagers. Because through the alcoholism, he had grown to I don't know, hate her, but really dislike her and put a lot of blame on her. So I want to read to you what this recovering alcoholic wrote. And this I can stop in the midst of anything. If I can remember this passage, it can help me through, or has helped me through a lot of things. So it says, and acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. Isn't that what conflict is? We find something unacceptable about that other person. And I can find no serenity until I accept the person, place, thing, or situation being exactly as it is supposed to be at this moment, right now. Accept that person just the way they are at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Until I could accept life completely on life's terms, I could not be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and in my attitude. So we're going to have conflict. We're human beings. People get on our nerves, we get on their nerves. Somebody does something, we don't like it. And so we're going to have conflict. But there has got to be a way to do it and get to a resolution where both parties come out with their dignity intact and in this acceptance. This acceptance has helped me, like I said, through many, many situations. And remember, if you are a recovering addict, you have a lot of tools that normal people do not have. Now, I will tell you, there are people, Christian people, religious people all over this world that have the same answers. They just came out of a different book. The book of Alcoholics Anonymous, majority of what comes out of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous comes out of two books of the Bible in the New Testament, James and Ephesians. If you really want to know how to live life, that's how you live. And those two books out of the Bible, James and Ephesians, and a lot of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous came right out of there. And the reason the big book is so helpful for addicts is because a lot of addicts have had spiritual abuse or religious abuse in their childhood. And the last book that they ever want to read is the Bible. So thank God this big book is not in conflict with any religious teaching. It goes right along with religious in the biblical teaching. So and that's what I have on conflict resolution. I never knew how to solve any problem until I got to a 12-step program. And it is by the grace of God that I found a 12-step program and got willing to work the steps. And I have to every day stop in the midst of any problem and ask, what is my part in this? And how important is it for me to get into this conflict in order to have my way about something? So anyway, that's what I have. Let me hear what you have. How do you solve problems? We've got some wise people, all of you are, but I know, I mean, some of you have worked through a lot of issues in your life. Give us some feedback and talk about, or if you have a conflict that you like to, that you're trying to find a solution for, well, put it out there and let's talk about it. Who wants to go first? I see a hand up, a friend from Canada. All righty. Hello, a friend from Canada. Y'all,
There we go. Good morning.
good morning.
Well, this is such a timely, I just love how that works. Because in Canada, we just had our Thanksgiving, which means family together and making decisions. And so my big challenge that came up is I have two sons and they're both married and their personalities are oil and water. And they're always at conflict. And they try and bring me in on it. And I'm like, I'll try and say something like, well, she has a new baby, or, I'll try and like bring another light to it. They don't want any part of it. They just want to be right. So I stepped away from it a couple of days ago because we're now deciding about Christmas and, oh my goodness, this sort of stuff. And the challenge is to let them be, and they don't want to. They want me to be in there. They want me to be on their side. And so it's so, they don't like that I'm stepping back from it, that I'm not, getting in there and making comments about the rest of it. And it's always, I have so much more information, and the acceptance prayer is the number one thing that I used from day one when I fell apart one of my times, but the first time. And it's one of the things that I give to everybody that, when someone comes to me or we talk about, and I make them read the full acceptance prayer right to the beginning, right to the end, because it's me, I just think I knew everything and, all that sort of stuff. And that's my thing is it's that thing of stepping away from the codependent behaviors. One is super codependent and super right, and the other one doesn't give a rat about anything. And that's my thing is to, as you're talking and for me, I think it's really about the part for myself is rather than placating everybody is to, be okay with my stand, and take the fallout, because they'll get mad and not talk to me, And and I think that's my fear all along. So I've always just kind of, not gotten into it with anybody so any suggestions on that one?
Well, the thing that I'm hearing is that they want to draw you in for that, and that they what we talked about the other day, that triangulation. And when two people are having conflict and try to bring another person in there, the best thing you can do is not get into it, because, there's a triangle, there's a triangulation, there's a victim, and there's a persecutor and a rescuer. And if they got you in there, they would make you, you would be the persecutor. I mean, it just starts that. So the best thing you can do is what I heard you say you did is step back. And I hear that these are grown adults.
Oh, grown ass.
So, I would say the best thing you can do is do nothing and take care of yourself and just love both of them and let them know how much you care about them and go on about your business. And don't be drawn in, because, they need to learn how to have conflict resolution. They know how to have conflict. And maybe, if I don't know if they've ever gotten any help themselves, but they, I know you, and so they lived, and you just mentioned the alcoholism. And so, they've lived in some dysfunction if they're like most of our kids, So, this thing maybe you can do is even say, I don't know, offer that, they might both, maybe go to Al-Anon or, and that's about the only thing I would say. Otherwise, I would just recommend stay out of it and
Yeah,
love them where
yeah.
they are. Go and enjoy Christmas.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny because I said, when I talked to the one, I said, if you were two little boys when you were small, yes, I'd sit you down on the couch and we'd have a conversation. But you're both over 6 feet tall and over 30. It's your turn. Go. I'm out of it. So it's interesting because all the emotions I can see all the parts of it, right? All, the judgment and the old history coming up, and with the wives. I mean, one wife, she's got to be right. She has huge expectations of everybody, and I'm like, you will be disappointed. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. Let's see if anyone.
Rebecca has her hand up.
Okay, Rebecca. Rebecca?
That was very interesting, Tennie. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
At chefs, when I was studying, there was huge amounts of conflicts about certain things, and I wish I knew what I knew now. I wish I knew then, because it would have made life a lot easier. Instead of just getting angry and getting frustrated and just wanting to slap everyone across the head, it was
work.
No, exactly. But at the moment, spending a lot of time in myself, I'm realizing the self-conflict I have. Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? What about this? What about that? What should I do? Am I doing the right things by going off my medication? Am I doing the right thing? I'm doubting. My problem is I get so many different opinions from different people that then I start to doubt myself. And then I'm like, am I doing the right thing? And I've got to just trust that, yes, I'm doing the right thing. Yeah.
And one of the things I'd recommend is limit the people that you talk with, because like you say, you're going to get so many different opinions. Find you three people that you trust, and stick with them. Otherwise, if you talk to a lot of different people, everybody you talk to is going to have a different opinion. And what really matters is how you're feeling and what's and how, because no one lives inside your skin. You've made some big decisions towards your own health here lately, and I really support you for what you are doing. And so stay close to those who really believe in you and support you, and just love the others and go on down the road. Love them and let them go.
Pick your battles. I loved when you said pick your battles, because I'm always saying it to myself.
Absolutely. Pick your battles. Yeah. All righty, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Natalie has her hand up.
Natalie? Okay.
Hiya.
Good morning, Natalie.
Good afternoon. It's
afternoon and where you live.
Hello. I just wanted to sort of share my experience in this, and I wondered whether you had anything to say about that. I'm somebody that completely shies away from conflict on the outside, but it all sort of happens internally, and I let it all out on my wife. I let it all out on our relationship, and I hadn't realised that's what I did until I did a little bit of work with you, and we were talking about rage and how writing down rage is a good thing to do. And I shied away from writing down my rage because I didn't want to have loads of bits of paper all around the house that said bad things about my wife, which is ridiculous. But when I did start to write down the stuff about my rage, I realized that it wasn't anything to do with her at all. Stuff like my dad's got Alzheimer's, and just concerns I had about work or concerns I had about my children. And I found that what I was doing is getting all of the rage out in sort of false conflict in a way, sorry if I'm, do you know what I mean? Sort of like I wasn't picking my battles, I was picking my opponent, somebody that I knew was going to take it, I guess.
Yeah. And you know this without me saying it, but that's emotional abuse to the other person, you know. And but on what most of us do that have, you know, experienced conflict, we either hold it in, like you said you did, and we can break down in stress related illnesses, or we'll hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, and then we'll blow up on those we love the most, you know, the very person that you love the most. And so I'm still going to recommend write out that rage, draw it out, get it out some way. And if you've gotten a sponsor, call the sponsor and talk it out with them. It's anything to deflate it, you know, to let it and to let it go, because it will eat you up from the inside out. And what I'm hearing, you know, you have a lot on your plate of, you know, most people your age do. You know, you've got ill father, you've got small children, you work, your partner works, you know, so you're busy people, and you know there's just conflict in daily life. So I would still recommend that you write it out, find some way to get it out, get outside and walk it out, stomp it out, you know, but instead of raging it out on your wife. That's not the way to have a healthy relationship, and you know this, you know it, you know. But I thank you for sharing, and we're not going to do it perfect. And you know that about rage is for me was like a drug. I'd have that build up, and then I blow up, and then I feel so much better. And then I want us to all just get up and go play and have fun. And, you know, these bodies would just be laid out, you know, my kids, my husband and all. So we must find a way to deal with the rage on the inside. And are you going to, I know it's hard now to go to meetings on kind of the pandemic, but are you reaching out to others during this time?
Yeah. The part of me that doesn't like conflict is the part of me that doesn't like to share as well in the OA meetings, and I'm a bit of a spectator on those. But I do have a sponsor, and I find a huge amount of relief after because we speak weekly, and that really helps.
Good. So I want you to hear what you said. I don't like conflict, but then you have that build up, and then you blow up, and then there's conflict. So,
yeah.
And I want to support you about how the hard work that you've been doing, and you're on the journey, you're on the path. So thanks for sharing with us, Natalie. It's good to see you.
No trouble. Good to see you too.
Did Terry, you had your hand up?
Yes.
Yes, Terry.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm trying to get the pictures. But so I was thinking as Val was talking from Canada that in Hope for Today, it says, I cannot have boundaries and take care of your feelings at the same time, that it's impossible. So I thought how true that is for me. And also the saying that I learned in Al-Anon is, when I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm growing spiritually. So if people aren't talking to me, like Val was talking about sons or something, that could be a good thing, because I might be doing the right thing and that people, you know, are upset with me. But if I'm doing the right thing, then I've got to get, you know, let go of the outcome and get my focus off of them. So that really jumped out at me, though, I cannot have boundaries and take care of your feelings at the same time. So again, it's kind of like checking my motives when I'm in conflict. So thank you very much for, I learned not to I've been dredging up the past and sometimes the future, and you're absolutely right. it's destructive. So
Well, thank you.
I'm great.
You gave us some good food for thought for me. Thank you. Good to see
Thank you. Good to
All
see
All right,
you.
Bonnie Kiefel has her hand up.
Do what?
Bonnie,
Bonnie, and then there's one right here.
yeah, and then Sarah and John.
Okay, there's one with the glasses on. I
Right,
don't,
LG.
Josie?
LG.
LG. Okay, all righty. So who's next? Bonnie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I totally resonate with how important it was for me to do my own work, my own childhood wounding stuff, because I had awareness that that's what was fueling a lot of the conflict I had in relationships about anything. And so the other part is all the tools that I use from program. I may need to just get into acceptance and then surrender, just give it to God. Or, you know, if I'm working with a sponsee and I really hear their addict is who I'm having the conflict with, I separate that addict from the person. And I'll say, I'm going to talk to your addict right now. You know, and then if I see that, you know, it's not going to get anywhere, then I'll choose to not deal with the addict right now and just let them know I love you, but I'm not willing to argue with your addict right now. And then the other thing I do is, you know, because I put out the intention and my affirmation is about choosing peace at all costs, then, you know, that comes to mind because I've been practicing that. And sometimes in some disputes, I might say, you might be right. And that disarms. And then, you know, there's still respect and integrity because I'm owning where I'm coming from, but they might be right too. So that's kind of some of the stuff I do today.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect. Yeah, one of the first things I learned in Al-Anon was that phrase, perhaps you're right. I mean, and that just stops it. Perhaps you're right. And my husband got real tired of hearing that, but it was either that or I was going to rage at him. But anyway, it's a tool. It's a really good tool. And it is disarming because you know, and to stop conflict, all you have to do is pull out of it. You know, thanks, Bonnie. Good to see you. Okay, so LG and then Sarah. Okay, LG.
You got on mute. There you go.
Okay, all righty. All right, there you go.
LG, what do you have to say?
Hello. LG.
I don't know. Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm Teresa. I'm Teresa. I don't know how to put my name up. I was just wanting to comment on something that you mentioned about humor. And I have always used humor as a block. Yeah. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I've always used it as a block to keep people from being mad. And that was my role in my family. I was the clown. One of 9 children, extreme abuse on every level, and a raging father, alcoholic. And, you know, when I wound up being that addict, I used humor to keep people happy. If you were happy, then everything was fine. Right. And so now I'm having a conflict with not using the humor, and I've had years of therapy, outside help, thank goodness, and in recovery. It's very difficult to not use that. And so I guess my question is there a way to incorporate humor but not use it as a crutch?
That's a good question. I think there is. And and you're exactly right. We can use different defense mechanisms as walls to keep, to keep people away from us and to protect ourselves. And so for you, that would probably not be something that you would want to use in
Right.
conflict resolution. But for someone like myself, for instance, I've always been a very serious person. I've lightened up through recovery. But for people who know me real well, if I can bring a little humor in there, it does lighten the mode or the moment. Because there's some of us that are just so serious, and I do want to report I'm not as serious as I used to be. And so I can, when I can lighten myself up a little bit and not take myself so serious, that's Rule 63 in Alcoholics Anonymous. Don't take yourself so serious. And when we don't take ourselves so serious, then it creates an opening to where we can really create a listing for the other person, So that's kind of, but I support you in not using your humor for a while, because you've got a PhD in humor. You know how to do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's funny, but everyone in that family had a different role, and so my role was to, if you were laughing, you didn't look at the abuse. And so,
Absolutely.
and I do enjoy humor, but it's odd that the people closest to me, like my husband, God bless him, are the people that I don't use the humor with. In fact, I use more, not rage anymore, thank goodness, but I have a tendency to, come on, understand what I'm saying, And so, and part of it also is there's a language barrier. English is his second language. So God put him in my life. I believe I was alone for a long time so that I could learn the patience.
Right. If you want,
but my sponsor just came back from a retreat with you, and she asked me to listen in, and I've listened to before, and I really enjoy, and I'd like to go ahead and continue to listen. But thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to have you. Miss Sarah.
Thanks, Tennie. There are two main things that I do when I'm having a conflict with someone. The first thing that I do is I practice true empathy. And I usually start with myself and just go ahead and throw out that I'm vulnerable, which a lot of times is hard for people to see. I have multiple black belts and can be very intimidating at times. So it helps when, I come and say, I'm feeling a lot of fear right now. Is it possible that you might be feeling somewhat similarly to me? And then we can just kind of get on the same playing field that way. The second thing that I do is I call out the lines that have been drawn. Whether I've drawn them or not, it's a little bit less relevant. But, I might say, it kind of feels like there's a line between us and you're over there and I'm over here. And what I'd really like to do, if you're okay with it, is to walk over to where you are, stand beside you, and look at this as the conflict. So that we can be on the same side and view the problem as the problem and not each other as the problem.
That's great, Sarah. So yeah, that's absolutely what a little twist of what I was saying is for the two people to realize they're not the problem and to get on the same page where you could look at the problem. I like that. Good to see you. And hi, John. Good to see you.
Hi, Tennie.
Okay, who's next?
She can't talk, she wants to say that.
Yeah. Okay, but
I don't know, we lost it. Hold on. It's really good.
Okay, so my friend T from Seattle, she can't get on, but she texted and she said, I can't get on, but if I could, I would want to add to the Choose Your Battles advice with the following. Have kept this in the back of my mind for decades. Choose your battles carefully, mark them big enough to matter and small enough to win. I like that. Choose your battles carefully, make them big enough to matter and small enough to win. That's good. Yep. All right. Anyone else? Who else has? Jan. No, Diane. Diane has her hand up. Diane.
Hi, Tennie. I'm so pleased to hear what you had to say today. Of course, I've
in the intensive, in the 42 days I was there, we studied that a lot. So conflict is still a problem for me, but between what you've taught me and what my Al-Anon sponsor taught me, that, I've learned how to deal with the alcoholic in my life.
Good.
She told me once that when I'm dealing with him, I have to remember he's inside the bottle and he's going, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
And it really works. I really, when I start talking and I can see that it's not doing any good, I just remember that and walk away.
Yeah.
But conflict is always a hard thing for people that have been abused like we have. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Diane. Good to see you and hear you. Jennifer. Jennifer?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, uh-huh.
I just wanted to say on the picture, first of all, conflict scares me, but I have the few instances in my life when I have faced conflict with help. There's been some really great solutions, so I have to remember that. But when I think about pick your battles, I have definitely used that as an excuse where I just don't want. I decide I don't pick any battles, then I just exit. And then I lose really good relationships because I'm like, okay, pick your battles. Well, I'm going to not pick this one. And then I don't pick any of them. So that's just something I have to really watch. That's for sure.
And Jennifer, is this the first time you've been on?
No, I've been on before. Actually my sponsor told me about your talk. So usually when I'm on, I can't talk because I'm at work. So
yeah. Well, I hope you'll continue to join us. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that being an avoidance, we call that an avoidance addict, where I'm just not going to pick a battle and then turn around and become that back walking away. And it does end lots of good relationships. So, and it takes courage to stop and turn around and face, what's before you. But if you're in a 12-step program, you're going to continue till you find that courage. I believe that you will.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm glad you talked today. All right.
Thank you.
Who's next? Anyone else?
I don't have anybody.
Okay. All righty. Well, it looks like our time is up. I appreciate all of you being here. Hope you'll join us next week. And what I want to talk about, we touched a little bit on acceptance. And what I thought we'd talk about next week is how to keep our expectations level lower. I mean, our acceptance level higher than our expectations. We're going to talk about expectations of ourselves and others. And also, if you have a subject, I mean, we've talked about a lot of different things. I think we started, in April or May? But if you have a subject that you would like for us to talk about, please send them to Cam and we will talk about them, because I want this to be your group. This is not mine. I'm just, I want all of us to be interactive, and I'm so glad that you are and have been today. So have a good rest of the week. And we'll, we do have a Tuesday night alumni call on 7 o'clock Tuesday night, and hope all of you will join us. And it's really open to anyone, but it's a great meeting if you need a 12-step meeting. With that, we'll close. Y'all have a good day.
Bye. Thank you, Tennie. Thank you, Cam.
Bye, Tennie. Thanks very much.
Bye, Misty.
Bye.
Have a good day.